On December 4, 1982, in Melbourne, the rhythmic pulse of a prenatal monitor gave way to a delivery room of stunned silence. Nick Vujicic was born with tetra amelia syndrome, a genetic rarity that results in the complete absence of arms and legs. Doctors offered no medical explanation for the anomaly. Without a family history or clear cause to point to, they handed the child to his parents. At the time, the medical consensus held little expectation that Nick would survive, let alone achieve a conventional life. Nick's childhood was defined by a specific kind of physical confinement. He was unable to perform the invisible routines of autonomy, showering, dressing, or eating without another person's hands to facilitate the process. This total dependency led to a perception that went deeper than his physical limits. He grew up seeing himself as a logistical burden, a constant weight his family was forced to carry through every hour of the day. By age 10, the mental exhaustion of trying to fit into a world built for limbs obscured his desire to live. He felt like an error in a world that prioritized physical symmetry. He asked to be placed in a bathtub, planning to submerge himself and roll over. He saw drowning as a way to end the cycle of dependency he imposed on his parents. As he sank, he pictured his parents at his funeral. He realized that his death would create a permanent, agonizing grief for his family, effectively trading his physical struggle for their emotional ruin. He chose to surface, but he remained in a body that society viewed with pity, leaving him with a singular question. How does a person find a reason to exist when their physical reality cannot be changed? A turning point arrived when Nick's mother showed him a newspaper article about a man living with severe disabilities who had built a meaningful life. This article provided the first evidence that his isolation wasn't a universal law. He saw a precedent for an existence that fell outside of standard expectations. He stopped focusing on why he was born this way and began considering what his specific condition allowed him to do that others couldn't. He traded the question of why me for what now. He discovered that perspective acts as a force multiplier. His body remained unchanged, but his focus moved from his missing limbs to his available capacities. He began focusing on his one physical asset, a small, partially formed foot on his left hip, which he nicknamed his chicken drumstick. Doctors performed surgery to separate its two fused toes. He spent years training those two toes to master the mechanics of his environment. This chart shows how he eventually reached a typing speed of 43 words per minute, surpassing many able-bodied users. He applied this mechanical focus to his education, navigating a university curriculum to earn a double degree in accounting and financial planning by 21. Lacking arms and legs, he realized that his voice was the most effective tool he had left. He began using his story to communicate with audiences who were struggling with their own invisible weights. This demonstrated that independence relies less on having a full set of tools and more on the exhaustive use of whatever remains. Nick now leads an international NGO called Life Without Limbs, has published 7 books, and engages in high-impact activities like skydiving and surfing. He even goes swimming with sharks. He is a husband and a father to 4 children. He built a life of deep human connection, despite the childhood fear that he would never be able to hold his own family. Today, he stands at a desk on stages before millions of people. He functions as a mirror. His physical presence forces the audience to examine the validity of their own self-imposed limits. The physical state once labeled as a deficit became the specific asset that gives his message credibility, commanding silence in arenas across the globe. His life follows a consistent logic. Pain, combined with a shift in perspective, yields a specific purpose. The pain is the variable, but the perspective is the multiplier. Society often treats the word impossible as a biological boundary, when it is frequently just a projection of what others are afraid to try. If a man with no limbs can navigate a global career and a family, it invites a difficult question. What mental barrier is currently keeping you from your own objectives? A person's potential is not dictated solely by their physical frame, but by how they choose to interpret and use the variables they were given.